Marek Suchánek, who works as a software developer and an analyst, mainly working with Data Stewardship Wizard, but also he is a PhD candidate at FIT in Prague, focusing on model-driven development in software engineering. So his output is very practical with application to real world use cases, and he's interested in fair data management, machine actionability, and designing services to support fair and open science. So thank you very much, Marek, for being with us today. Just to reiterate, please post questions and discussions into chat for the end of the talk. So thank you very much.
Thank you for the invitation and also for the introduction. Hello, everyone. I will today give you some more like technical or institution-oriented introduction to DSW. It will not be like the basic introduction, but how you can actually adjust the DSW to your specific use case that you want. Just briefly, a few core concepts of the DSW, or what is it actually? It's open source tool for data management planning. Initially, we developed that in collaboration between ELIXIR-CZ, Czech node, and also the Dutch node. And we have a bit different way of thinking than other tools. We do not like fill some DMP template, but rather we guide the users through the complexity of data stewardship by promoting best practices, by providing, for example, some metrics, etc. It's not oriented to some single DMP template, but we focus on the proper guidance, and actually the plan, the document is just a secondary effect or side product of the planning, which is the important thing, the planning where the researchers explore the knowledge, get the guidance, and then know how to apply it in practice. There is some terminology that we have. It's somewhat unique to this tool. So we have something called knowledge model. This is the core of the tool, and it's something that people can edit directly. And this knowledge model captures the knowledge and guidance. Basically, it's for data stewards in this domain to capture what is important, what are the important questions, what is the guidance to those questions, what are possible answers, potentially some other references, etc. So we will see later. And then there is something called document template. That's something detached from the knowledge model. That's important. That's the difference from other tools. And these document templates take the replies from questionnaire based on the knowledge model and turn it into documents. As we will see later, these documents does not have to be just for human readers, but it can be also something machine readable document, for example, in JSON or in our RDF. And then we have questionnaires. The questionnaires are, as I already mentioned a bit, instances of a knowledge model. So in the knowledge model, you specify what are the chapters, what are the questions, and then a researcher creates a questionnaire based on that knowledge model and fill the replies. When the researcher is ready with the questionnaire, they can produce a document, which is a result of applying the document template to the questionnaire, basically transformation from the replies to some document, to some file. We call questionnaire together with associated documents a project. And then finally, there is project template. It's somewhat a third type of template that we have there. And it's a project that is prepared by data stewards as a starter point for other users. So what is a knowledge model? As I mentioned, there are the chapters and questions, but it's of course a bit more complex. Over the time, we improve that, of course. And the questions are of several types. For example, we have the list questions, which create some sub-items. Then we have option questions where the users can select one of the specific answers, and each answer may have some sub-questions. So we have like the hierarchy in the knowledge model. Then there are multi-choice questions. Of course, there can be many choices selected together, but at this point, there is no possibility to have like the follow-up questions. Then there is also the value question. You may saw that I mentioned that we avoid writing as much we can. But sometimes, of course, the people need to fill in some details by typing, for example, names of the participants, name of the project, etc. And finally, one of the most interesting types of questions is integration question, where it can be linked to some integration. It's configured directly in the knowledge model. Nothing is hard-coded in the DSW. And when the user types an answer, it's searched through API, as we will see. For example, fair sharing. Then, of course, the questions may have references, links to experts, some text, be assigned to some phases. Then how it looks like for a researcher when they create a questionnaire or project from a knowledge model. This is an example of options question, where the user can see the title, some guidance text, description, which is markdown flavor. So you can have links, you can have figures, you can have bold text, etc., some basic formatting. Then there are references, in this case to fair sharing and registry of research data repositories, as this question is about what repository should be used for some data set. And here are the possible answers that can users select, and they can also see as a guidance what is the relation to, in this case, FAIR metrics, in this case, in particular to findability. So when they select our national repository, they can see that it's like so-so for findability. They can do better. They can use domain-specific repository. And actually, as you may see on the right side of the answer, the domain-specific repository, there will be some follow-up questions related to that answer. Of course, we allow in the questionnaires collaboration. So you can share it with logged-in users. You can share it with public links similarly to Google Documents. And then you will see who and when answered a question. Of course, you have some version history. You can go back in time. And finally, in this case, there is some advice as additional guidance for the reply. So when they select our national repository, here is explanation what is the disadvantage of this choice. So that was options question. And the other interesting one is integration question, as I mentioned. So in this case, we ask for a reference database or data set, and the users can start typing, and they get these type hints or suggestions. And this is done through API of fair sharing, that you probably know this service. And if the user selects one of these from the drop-down menu, it's not just the text, but direct link to the fair sharing, in this case with DOI. So the reply is linked, and it's possible to at any time to go to the record and see more details, for example, some maturity of the record, etc. So how it works, very briefly, you have some knowledge model and some document templates. That's something that the data steward manages in the Data Stewardship Wizard. A knowledge model is the structure for questionnaire. Document template is something that is related to certain knowledge models and is able to transform the replies to questions to some document. Then the researcher, the regular user, creates the questionnaire using the knowledge model, and at any point they can select one of the compatible document templates and generate the document. This is again a bit different from other tools. So here you can create a questionnaire, then decide to generate Horizon Europe DMP, but at any point you can also generate Science Europe or, for example, Machine Actionable DMP in JSON from the same questionnaire with the same replies. Then a bit more technical things. The DSW is highly customizable and flexible. Nothing from the content side is hard-coded, as I explained, for example, for the integrations. So organizations can easily adjust the content, the knowledge model, and also the document templates, and also some other things using settings and other integrations. So the knowledge models. There is something called knowledge model editor, which is available to users with role data stewards and administrator. And there can these users collaboratively together work on the capturing the knowledge and guidance. Basically, they have the editor and they change the text that you saw for the question, for example, add some options, delete some options, etc. There is some versioning model behind these knowledge models. So even if the knowledge model is used already by the researchers, you can make update, and then the researchers will be able to migrate to the new version very easily. Similarly, you can have some so-called parent knowledge model or root knowledge model, which is generic, and you can make branches with some specializations, for example, to some domains or to some institutions. For example, in some institutions, they do not have this institutional repository, so they can remove that answer from that question that we saw, and, for example, place their other thing or other guidance for the users of their own, and have this knowledge model based on our. And when our parent knowledge model is updated, they can propagate again the changes. So there are these two types of migrations. The knowledge models that we develop, those are based on the mind map of Rob Hooft from Dutch node of ELIXIR, are distributed through this DSW registry service. So when someone deploys own Data Stewardship Wizard, they can connect to this service and easily download and upgrade the knowledge models as they are updated by us. This is actually how the knowledge model editor looks like. So you can see that it's quite intuitive. You select from the tree on the left side or navigate through the right side, and there you can edit the entities very easily. There is also a preview function, so directly in the editor you can see how the questionnaire actually look like for the users before you publish it, for example. Then the other thing that can be adjusted are the document templates. Again, those are not hard-coded, but some package that can be developed, shared, and used across different DSW instances. It's a bit more technical because this is based on the Jinja 2 templating language. Some of you who are familiar with Python or Ansible may know this language, but for those who don't, it's very like a lightweight templating language. So you need to know some way of doing if conditions, for loops, etc. But there is, I think, very good documentation. We have also some video tutorial how to make templates, and we also plan some updated documentation on that. Why we use this and not something maybe a bit more developer friendly is that this allows us to create practically any textual document. So you can create HTML or XML that can be then transformed to PDF files or document of Microsoft Word, which is, of course, for human users to download, print, or read, or comment, etc. But you can also create JSON, RDF, basically whatever textual file. And since this release 3.20, which was earlier this month, there is document template editor directly embedded in the DSW, just as the knowledge model editor, but still it's writing Jinja 2 code, but it's directly in the UI, so you don't have to work with the tools from command line, create some packages, etc. You can do it directly in the wizard. Again, we share those document templates through registry. At this point, we have the Horizon Europe, Horizon 2020, Science Europe, Machine Actionable DMP, and we have also the questionnaire report template, which is usable with any knowledge model because it does not make any assumptions about the questions inside. And currently, we are working on wrapping up the RU-Create export template, so we will be able to create some prepared arrow crate from the data management plan, basically. And those templates are on GitHub. So you can search for them. After this presentation, you will get the slides, so you will be able to click on the link as well. Here is also the possibility to create this template for UK use case. So there is this MRC template that I checked, and I saw that there is quite significant overlap with some existing templates that we have, because I was one of the developers of those templates, so I know the content there. And of course, there are some missing parts. And for those parts, it would be needed to check whether there are the suitable questions in the knowledge model that we have, in case that's the one that you want to use. And if that's the case, and some are missing, we can also add them to the knowledge model, either for example, in this case, UK specific branch of the knowledge model, or directly in the generic one. And then when the knowledge model is prepared for the template, then it's just working on the template to basically query the knowledge model and the questionnaire to get the replies and transform them to some text, to some sentences, to some paragraphs, a list, bullet lists, etc. And of course, when you develop something, then you need to maintain it. For example, when you get some feedback from the users, you may need to make some adjustments. Another thing that you can adjust in the wizard are the project importers. So the document templates work that you have the questionnaire with replies, and you want to get it to some document and usually send it somewhere, store it somewhere, etc. But you may want to go in the opposite direction to get some replies from another resource to the DSW. For example, feed some information about the data sets that you reuse, or from some other tool that you used for data management planning, using, for example, the machine actionable DMP in JSON. So this is why we devised this thing. It's again very flexible. Basically, there is the software development kit for such importers in JavaScript, and we have again some examples. So you create your own importer if you need for your type of file that you want to input or service. And then you are able to push basically replies to the DSW questionnaire. This is then how it can look like. Basically, it opens this importer. You do something in the importer. In this case, it's selecting a file, to load the file in this case, and push the replies to the DSW. There is then the procedure where the user sees what answers are imported to the questionnaire and basically can review this import. Another thing related to documents is that DSW can be configured to submit document to some other service. So for example, users may be able to submit some specific files, in the case described on the slide, Horizon Europe DMPs and PDF, to some local storage, to some local service, for example, document management system. You can configure it from settings. Again, nothing is hard-coded. And then users will be able to see by their document menu submit button, and they will just select to which service they want to submit and then see that it was submitted or whether there were some errors during the submission. There are, of course, much more things or many more things that can be configured or integrated. For example, organizations like very much the opportunity to have some single sign-on with OpenID. For the ELIXIR instance, we, for example, use the life science login. Then, of course, it's possible to customize look and feel, colors, logo, how the dashboard look like, some welcome message, etc. You can link your ticketing system when users report some issues. Also, in the questionnaire, the users may want to give some feedback on questions. So there is this feature where you configure to which service the feedback should be pushed. And we also have the locals, and that's usually used for translations, but you can also use it to rename something. So for example, if you don't like some terminology in the wizard, you can use it to rename it. And yeah, there are many more. And the last one that I want to mention is that the DSW has some REST API because it's client-server application, and this API can be used for some scripting or some integration with this REST API. So just to conclude my presentation before we get to the discussions, DSW is widely used tool and it's flexible. It's used mainly for the data management planning, but as you can see, it's so flexible that it can be used beyond that. You just create a different knowledge model and different templates, not related to data management planning. And in this case of data stewardship, it helps to guide the researchers through this complex domain of data stewardship, and basically teaching them what is important, what they should consider, and what are the options. It can be adjusted through different things: infrastructures, countries, organizations, groups. It's really flexible, and mainly it's still being developed. It's not like final tool. We still make improvements based on community feedback. We have this ideas service where the people who use DSW submit some feature requests, vote about them, discuss about them. And we have also suggestions from our advisory board that we have some regular meetings with, and they give us some hints. What should we look at? What are the new things in the world of data stewardship? So that's it from my side.